Hello and welcome to MonsterKid Fury. I'm Callie. Here today is Rich of MonsterKid Central. Hi, Rich.
Howdy.
And Rick of Film Fury. Hi, Ricky.
Hola. Hey.
And we're just going to freestyle it. Just talk about whatever it is that we want to talk about.
Wow. That's some fierce responsibility here. I don't know if I'm up to it.
I think we'll be all right.
Anything.
We'll be fine.
We could talk about anything.
Anything.
Magicians, pop figures.
Pop figure. Oh, you don't want to talk about pop figures.
Ever.
You don't like pop figures?
Yeah.
You came close to getting one for Christmas. That's all I'm saying.
Please. I'm begging you, no.
He already has one, remember?
I have one. Yep.
Yeah,
I have Leatherface. And
yes.
And Aisha got me that, so I can't even legally get rid of it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's a gift.
I think they actually have 3 of him, actually.
Oh,
3 different variants.
From the first one, or just 3,
from
like 1, 2, and 17?
Yeah, no. I think they're all from the first one, because you get the homemaker one with the makeup on the face. You get the one where he kills the So yeah, it's 3 variations
so they're from the
of
original.
him. Yeah, they're all from the original.
Not that's good, because there are different Chuckies, and those ones are from different movies, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. See, I think the inherent problem with Pops for me is that the faces all kind of look the same. So you can't, if you have a different face shape, it doesn't matter. So, like, I remember, like, I think the weirdest Michael Myers is from 5. Now, you may disagree, but I think that's the one that looks the least like the original. And so if they did one for the first one and for number 5, to me, they all look the same, because the face, the
all have
head
the same
has that round, tomato-shaped head, which I'd like to bash in. So anyway, so
it's so cute, though.
And the other thing that pisses me off is, it's like, I'll go through a convention, like Sunday. John and I are at a convention, and trust me, it's only because it had a poster on it that said convention, or I wouldn't even be able to use the word convention to describe it. And I mean, it was ugh. So anyway, and we walk the floor, we do our initial walkthrough, and there are, like, let's say 7 board games from the 60s and 70s at a table, and 7,000 pops. And then two tables worth of cookies, which, by the way, are just round cookies. They're not in the shape of anything. They're not horror related at all. They're just frickin' cookies. And then the next table, they're, I don't know, medallions or something like that. And it's like, oh, geez, medallions must be back in. And then, I mean, it's like, where's the vintage stuff? Well, we can't have vintage stuff because the van's too full of pops.
They take up a lot of space.
Yeah, they do. Especially when you bring them by the gross. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it pisses me off. Anyway, enough about that tripe.
On to the real conventions.
Yes.
Which one do we have coming up that you guys are excited about?
Actually, Sunday I'm going to something brand new, but it's called the something or other Florida Collector Show.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually something that John and I are looking forward to, because it's almost like you can't have brownies there. You know what I mean? You can't have a table full of brownies at a collector show, because you don't collect cookies. Well, sadly, for years I did collect cookies, but That's all
Can't,
gone now.
I was gonna say, can you collect them if they're not there any longer?
Well,
I don't
no,
think it counts.
that's true. I collected empty paper plates that at one point had cookies on them. How about that
Yeah.
one?
There you go.
So anyway, so we're hoping that there's going to be like, stuff there.
Yeah. At a collector's show,
Yeah.
you would think.
No guests, but that's okay. I'll just,
You don't always have to have.
yeah, I'll take lots of stuff over anything else any day. And Spooky Empire for this year has started to announce, and they're starting off with Joe Bob Briggs and Darcy.
Excellent.
And let me see what else. I don't know.
Do you know when?
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Well, I was just asking, do you know when Spooky Empire is going to happen?
Usually in May.
Okay.
They used to call it Mayhem, which I loved.
What?
I was going to ask you about that. So it's just Spooky Empire now for that as well, huh?
Yeah,
Spooky Empire presents Mayhem.
Right. And I think what happened was one year they couldn't get May, so they had to do June, and that kind of screwed up the whole thing. And
you call yourself Mayhem
in June hem. So it was
boo.
Yeah, I know.
Bad pun.
So anyway,
3 when the pun jail.
Yeah.
Well, in March we're going to go to New Jersey Horror Con because the Blair Witch Project reunion's happening.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
Yeah, Niobe's pretty hyped about it. Yeah.
Wow.
So Heather, Mike, and Josh. Yep.
Yeah. That one was scheduled for the one. What was it last year that got canceled? It's the Spooky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was all bummed about.
Oh yeah.
And I was really psyched. I mean, like almost too psyched to meet the three of them. I could not wait.
Well, because it's a long time coming, and it's one of your favorite movies, so that makes sense.
And I honestly think the last great horror movie of the 20th century. I mean,
yeah, I'm looking over the rest of the guest list. It's kind of minimal
For
outside
what?
of them. For New Jersey Horror Con, yeah.
For the New Jersey
and
one.
when is it again?
March 1st and 2nd.
Oh, you got a little time. You could probably announce for another 4 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, Eric Roberts is going to be there. That's kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool.
They took my thumb, Charlie. I can't.
She had never seen the Pope of Greenwich Village before, and then during my recovery time, I think my second day home, I just watched movies, and that one came on.
Oh yeah,
it's just on.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I like that movie.
It's an interesting movie. I'll say that.
Okay.
It's like Mickey Rourke when he was still awesome. He didn't look like Michael Myers yet.
I just had to dull my sound. Apologies. Anyway, Mickey Rourke didn't look like Michael Myers.
He does now. Have you seen him lately? Oh,
yeah, geez, it's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Poor guy.
Like you go back and look at The Wrestler and go, oh, he looks normal. But and that was around the time he started to make the change, if you will.
Yeah.
He was really great in that movie.
Oh yeah, I like The Wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
The only work that I might have to get done is I've got what they call a drooping brow. So it always looks like my eyes are half closed. And so I was terrified of this because I had this vision that they were going to make them so wide that I was always going to look surprised. Now, I belong to a gym. The last thing I need to do is walk by the sauna, let's say, and have my eyes look surprised. So it's like I didn't want any of that. My neighbor actually, I was telling her about it, and she said, "No, I had it done." And I said,
Yeah.
"Really?" She said, "Yeah, it worked out great." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So
It's
anyway,
actually a bigger thing. One of Niobe's tech teachers at her school, she also had kind of like the same affliction.
yeah,
And so for years, they kept telling her, no, 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 it's not bad enough yet. It's not bad enough yet. So she had to actively hold her eyes super open just to look what she considered normal.
yeah,
Poor thing. And we're talking years.
yeah,
And then finally, she was approved. This was some time ago. She was approved for the surgery, had it done, and yeah, she's like, "Oh my god, I can just let my face rest,"
yeah,
because she showed me what she looked like before the surgery. She relaxed her eye muscles essentially, and then yeah, it looked like her eyes were shut.
yeah.
And she says this is just what happens apparently, over time, and it just got worse. So yeah, they're not going to make you look surprised. They'll just do the surgery that was intended to make you look normal.
Yeah, well, I figure, again, being a horror fan, we've all seen our fair share of botched surgeries over the years,
I got you.
and and
Absolutely, yes.
and sadly in real life too. And and it was like, nah, I don't want any part of that. Never
You
mind.
feel like you have that luck, right?
Yeah. So that it scared the hell out of me. But I have
Okay.
I have to do that too. I have to. Eileen has to keep telling me, open your eyes wide, unnaturally wide, for photographs. It's like, well, okay.
Ah,
So yeah, it's kind of weird.
I mean, the odd part about it to me, the whole Botox thing, is that you're not fooling anyone because you can. It looks uncanny. It doesn't look
Right.
natural, and it's always the increasing of just these bubbles on the face. It's so
Right.
bizarre.
Yeah, I know. I've often felt the same way. That it's. I look. I'm the last person in the world to judge what anybody else does, and but I mean, do people who, let's say, are in their 80s, their mid 80s, that have bright red hair, do they think that anybody looks at them and thinks they're not dyeing their hair?
Yeah.
That their hair just stayed red over the years.
oh, I see what you
You
mean.
know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
yeah,
to me, okay, so I know that person dyes their hair. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I
yeah.
don't have a problem with that. But if you're trying to make it
Be
look
younger.
like yeah, it's kind of weird. I always say the best thing to do, I cheat I cheat up my age by 10 years, because and let's lay the cards out on the table. For a 68-year-old, I look like shit, but for a 78-year-old, oh my god, you're like,
You look
what
fantastic,
the
right?
hell is he doing, man? He barely looks 68. So
Oh,
that's what I do. I just cheat it upward.
I never thought
it's not a
about
bad
that. That's a
idea.
pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty decent.
Yeah,
Well,
good strategy.
I get paid to think, so it's what
Indeed.
it's what I do.
But I think the disappointing part too, with a lot of a lot of celebrities, because that's where we have this conversation usually,
Right.
obviously with Botox and whatnot. A lot of the people look perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Tia Carrera looked perfectly fine,
Yes.
very fine, and then she went and messed her face up.
Yep.
Famke
Yeah.
Janssen, same thing, looked gorgeous, and now she did it to her face. I mean, I don't understand. It's like I don't think it's helping your situation at all. And if it's a personal choice, great, but I wonder how much of it is geared by the industry.
Right. Yeah,
A
I
lot.
agree.
I think a lot. Because again, you have that standard. What was it? Oh my gosh. Was it Tom Hardy who was getting a lot of flack because like he went to some Hollywood thing and they
Yeah,
were
the
like, "Oh my
premiere.
god, look how much weight he's gained." It's like, who cares?
Yeah,
He's an actor. He's a person.
bite me. It's like,
So right?
it's ridiculous.
But they were really really bad about just being so judgmental and superficial about it.
Yeah.
And again, I I can understand where people would read online comments and just get so disheartened because these are people saying these things about you, but they're also nameless people,
Right.
anonymous.
Yeah.
So it's not like somebody's coming out towards you and saying this to your face. But again, how do you take that? Do you just say, okay, me as a person, I don't care because obviously I don't know these people?
Right.
Or do you take it seriously? I guess it depends on the person.
Yeah, it depends on the individual. But, you know, I mean, you want to show some balls? Okay, great. Say it to De Niro in his prime when he gained weight for Raging Bull. Say, hey, Bobby, you're looking a little porky there, and then pick your ass up off the ground. So yeah, you know,
And it goes both ways because there are people who gain weight for roles and then lose it for roles specifically, like Christian Bale for The
oh
Machinist.
my God,
Yeah, everybody was so worried, like, oh,
yeah,
we don't think he's gonna make
yeah,
it. Somebody get this dude a
yeah.
sandwich. Like he
That was
needs to
some
eat.
scary shit.
Yes,
But again, he did it as an exercise to see how far he could push, you know, his
his
body
acting. Yes,
and his acting. And man, oh man, you know, it's just that was some scary shit.
and then he went the opposite direction because that was right before Batman, wasn't
Right.
it?
He had to bulk up, start bulking up for Batman.
He bulked up too much apparently because his buddies were giving him shit about it. It's like this is Batman, not Fat Man.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, leave him alone.
I just slapped the shit out of him.
Right?
Sorry, I was muted. You
Oh
probably saw my mouth moving, and I'm like, I'm talking, and everyone's like, everyone's ignoring me. Why?
yeah, we are ignoring. Ignore me.
No, what I was gonna say is because talking about the whole age thing, uh, I've noticed a very odd thing happening this year with the horror films that came out, or last year rather. And it's something that you and I talk about a lot, Rich, which is this glamorizing certain horror films that come out as if they are going to be the cult classics from years from now, that type of thing.
Right.
And I don't know, it seems to be really okay. Let's put it this way. I was thinking about Black Christmas the other day. I went ahead and put it on again because a really good show called The Halloweenies had done a episode about it. And the thing that struck them, because they're all in their mid to late 30s, the thing that struck them was how that movie still affected them.
Right.
But the thing that they brought up that I completely agree with is that it is a film that is still not mentioned in the conversation by, I would say, modern day horror film fans.
Right.
And I just keep looking at the situation, and it's so bizarre to me. It's all, I mean, I've spoken ad nauseum about the fact that when I watched Psycho when I was 13, 14 years old, there was no wall. There was no, oh, these people talk weird, they're dressed strangely, any of that. And I understood the importance and I felt the power of that film. And it seems like modern day horror film audiences, I don't know if it's the avoidance of the past, the inability to look at things from a different spectrum of time.
Hmm.
It's just very strange to me because let's look at the films that were the most talked about last year. Okay, so starting with the most recent one that was released, Nosferatu. I went to that movie; it was perfectly fine. But over the last week, I have heard on multiple podcasts about how this is the most important horror film of the last decade, that it's one of the best horror films of the last decade. And I'm watching it and I'm going, well, he's pulling from Bram Stoker's Dracula here. He took from Coppola there. He took from the Werner Herzog version here. And I'm wondering if it's due to lack of film literacy. Is that the reason people are watching movies and considering them so much more than they are?
Hmm.
And it just seems very disappointing to me that audiences, you can't just watch what's current. I mean, you can, but how can you enter the conversation and have anything to say if you don't know anything about the last 50 years of film?
If you haven't seen anything about where horror has been, how do you know where it's going?
Right. And it's like, example, Long Legs. Have you seen that one yet, Rich?
Yes.
Okay. What did you ultimately think of it? Because I don't think we discussed it.
Ultimately, it was, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It might have had it at one point. It might have had a really good nugget of an idea, but it's eh.
Yeah, yeah. See, that's exactly how I felt. And it's interesting because you'll hear people say, "Oh, well, maybe you're aging out of your genre,"
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
what
like,
it is.
that's a completely exactly. It's a ludicrous comment, because if that was the case, how would I have enjoyed a film like Psycho back in the day?
Right.
I
Absolutely.
remember, see, and this has been like a long-standing thing, because I remember taking the boys when they were, I'm gonna guess, between 12 and 15. That was probably their age bracket at that point. So that would have put that, what, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And we went to I'm not sure what you guys call them. What's where you can eat and watch the movie at the same time. Here we call it Cinema Cafe. I know there's different names everywhere. Alamo Draft House
Yeah,
has the same
Alamo.
business dynamic.
here we call it my living room.
But we went to see John Carpenter's Halloween.
Yep.
And what got me, just bowled me over, the laughter in the audience.
Yeah.
Laughter at key scenes of just pure brilliant filmmaking, to the point where my boys, my children at that point, they're nudging me and they're like, why are these people laughing?
Right.
They shouldn't be laughing at this moment. And it's just this bizarre disconnect, you know. And I've had this argument with people online where they're like, "Oh, well, you're gatekeeping. You want to keep something to yourself." And it's like, no, what I'm talking about is giving our genre its due, and its reverence, and just the love that it deserves. And to have, people who are saying they're enjoying it but poke fun at it and laugh at it, it's just, again, it's a disconnect for me. I just don't quite understand it.
Well, okay, but what should anybody expect when it's um let's say, how many years since Halloween? 40-ish? Yeah, we'll say 40-ish.
Yeah,
Um
it's got to be. Yeah.
okay, so we're looking at three movies by three different directors that started it over since 1978. Of course, everything is disposable now. Of course, everything is old. 1978's old. The second Rob Zombie says, you know something? It's old enough. Let's remake it. And then somebody else comes in who I never thought I'd say it, but makes Rob Zombie's Halloween look good, and they remake it again. So it's now been three Halloweens since 1978. It makes everything look disposable. Still working on one Citizen Kane, but we got three Halloweens since '78. I think that's something that just cheapens the whole damn thing. Again, though, these were to restart a series. Restart a series. I mean, holy crap. Really? So, anyway, speech over.
And do you feel that it's specifically just a horror genre? Like, do we see
Yeah.
this in any other? Because you don't, right?
Well, except for Hallmark movies, but they're technically they're remade every single time out of the gate.
Yeah,
But
and I don't think their fans care. Like
right,
they enjoy
they enjoy it.
a remake,
Yeah, yeah.
unlike horror fans.
I think right. I think with horror, you remake a franchise with rom-coms and things like that. You remake a style for comfort. I
And
mean,
they just put fresh faces,
yeah,
really.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, and some brilliant directors. I mean, some brilliant directors are working in that industry too. And why not? I mean, um, Sam Irvin can do can probably do 3 movies for Hallmark while he's trying to get funding for a horror movie. So
So, on that note, what do you guys believe that there has been a remake that was successful in the horror genre?
there's been a few.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, not recently. It's all been years ago. John Carpenter's The Thing, The Fly, uh,
Okay.
Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. I think is still a good film.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's more recent, but
Yeah,
there was probably a cutoff, right?
I'm trying to
yeah,
think of
because
the last remake that kind of knocked me out.
Mhm.
And, and really all it does is get me to say why.
Because they do it badly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's it's frustrating because I know Rick and I get very frustrated at it because
Yeah.
there's proof that it can be done right.
Mhm.
Um, say what you want about, let's say, where Rob Zombie took the Halloween franchise, but I mean he certainly made it his own. So
Yes.
I cannot fault him for that. I don't happen to like the world he brought it into, but
Yeah.
I can't fault him for for trying to do the same old thing.
Hmm.
And by the way, Rick, you should mark this down because I said something nice about Rob Zombie's
You did.
directing.
outside of his music, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
with his
Oh yeah.
film work, yeah. I think like that Wolfman remake. I don't think that I was actually kind of excited for that film because Lee Winnell was directing it because
Hmm.
I do like him as a filmmaker, as a
Hmm.
storyteller.
Yeah.
Um, but everything I've seen of the Wolfman, I think it's going to be everything but a Wolfman by the time we get to the end of it. I think they're trying to subvert everything so much, and I think that's one of the problems I'm having with the current horror genre. Every goddamn filmmaker out there is obsessed with like, oh, I'm going to take this, I'm going to make it mine. It's like you
Hmm.
don't have to do that. No one's
Hmm.
asking you to do that. You're just being asked to make a good horror film.
Right.
That doesn't mean you take it and turn it into something you necessarily only want to see. And I keep getting the vibe that's what filmmakers are doing. It's
Right.
not even about the horror film, it being a horror film anymore. It's about, well, it's going to be a horror film for this generation. Well, what does that fucking mean exactly? What does that mean? What do you have to say? Okay. When Toby Hooper made the Chainsaw Massacre, very much like when Romero made Night of the Living Dead, they put elements of what they wanted to say about the world there, but one, not beating you over the head with it. Two, it didn't change the fact that this is still a horror film.
Right.
And I've kind of hit it here. I'm tired of movies trying to concentrate on trauma and on societal ills to the point where it just overshadows the entire story.
Hmm.
Mhm.
When I'm watching Nosferatu, I'm like, what are you trying to say with this film, Mr. Eggers? What are you doing? Because you're manipulating what the original Murnau film was.
Right.
You're not really going where Herzog went.
Right.
What is it? What do you want us to take from it? Because again, it turns into this whole thing of, oh, well, only a woman can defeat Nosferatu, and this is only the way they can do it. It's like, but that's not what happened in the Murnau film. The woman won, but she used her mind, her intellect. She
Right.
tricked him,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
And in the remake, spoilers, if no one's seen it, tune out. It's just the bullshit kind of, I'm going to use my eroticism. I'm going to use my ability to lure him. It's ludicrous. It's just silly, is what it is.
Because only women can do that, apparently.
Yeah, I'm like, so that's all the woman has to offer is her body in order to defeat the monster.
Right.
And there was just so much about that movie that I'm like, there's nothing we have not seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that's the one thing you can say about the horror filmmakers of the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and even you would argue the 90s, is that they learned from the previous decade. They were like, oh, I like that. Now I'm going to do my version of it. But not flip it on its fucking head to where it just doesn't even have the semblance of a good
Right.
horror film any longer.
Yeah.
And it's just so weird because I don't understand the admiration and just the hurrahs that some of these movies are getting, like Longlegs. Again, I'm watching this movie, and even on a storytelling level, it doesn't make sense. And I don't mean like in a Dario Argento, you know, just go with it kind of sense,
Right.
like complete story logic. There is no way her character, Micah Monroe's character in Longlegs, would not be able to be an FBI agent.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is to it. You could not be a disassociated, just clammed up individual and go through the ranks of the FBI. It just doesn't fucking happen.
Right.
So I'm already disconnected. I can't appreciate the story you're trying to craft because I don't buy it.
Right.
Dale Cooper on Twin Peaks, he was a quirky FBI agent,
Yes.
but he wasn't to the point of inability to communicate with another human being.
Correct.
So the storyline worked as
Yep.
Dale Cooper.
On the topic of David Lynch, we recorded this episode before he passed away. Here is our addendum. Rich, the floor is yours.
It sucks when we have to do something like this. Not because I don't like being with these people. I love being these are two of my closest friends. But the subject matter sucks. And we're constantly hearing about directors who take the easy way out. And that was not David Lynch. To me, he was a giant. He was brilliant. He was quirky, and those right there, that's a great artistic combination. I'm going to miss him, and I will say one thing: as much crap as the Showtime Twin Peaks took, the ending, the last episode, the last basic scene in the last episode chilled me to the point where if I think of it still today, many years later, I get goosebumps. And I thought pretty much everything that he did was brilliant, and I loved the look of his stuff. And like I said, he is going to be sorely missed.
Thank you, Rich, for sharing. All right, Ricky, take it away.
Well, I'm going to try to keep it short because the simple fact is I'm still processing a lot of it. Kind of like when Romero died and Craven and Hooper, but I didn't have a platform to really discuss it. So he came at a point where I was in my teenage years where I had seen his work, never realized it because when you're in the teenage years as a lover of film, you start piecing things together. Like when I worked at the video store, I'm like, oh, this guy directed this, and his work, yeah, it was more influential on me than I ever thought. I mean, I always loved his stuff, so, but yeah, it stinks that he's gone. It's a shame that he had to go the way he did. He was one of these Los Angeles guys. He never left. He stayed there, for decades. And of course, he had emphysema already, but the LA fires is kind of what made it even worse. And by the time they moved him out, it was too late. So it just stinks. There's so many factors there to struggle with. Well, he wasn't smoking, chain smoking like mad for the last 30 years or even longer. I think he started smoking. I think the quote is like 13. I think it was when he started smoking.
Yeah.
So, but that, and then the LA fires, it's just such an unfortunate set of circumstances. And we've lost a guy who was a true original. Like, you hear critics throw around, oh, it's Lynchian. Oh, fuck you. No, it's not. Only Lynch could do Lynch. It's like that line in the movie with Jason Patrick. Is it not Incognito? The title's escaping me right now, but it's about art thieves. And there's a quote where they say only Rembrandt can paint a Rembrandt. Same thing with Lynch. Anyone who says this movie's Lynchian, no, only Lynch did Lynch. That's all there is to it. And he will be sorely missed.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was. Let's leave it at this. I quit smoking August 22nd of 1989. I was smoking 4 packs a day.
Wow.
I quit cold turkey. Not that that should be a badge of honor. Quit any way you can. But if you want to know really how this ends, look at George Harrison, the Beatle, months before he passed away. Look at David Lynch, and ask yourself, is it worth it? Do you really want to end up like that, struggling for breath? So what I'm saying is, if I could quit, you guys can quit too and knock it the fuck off.
And that was the thing. His vices, it was coffee, women, and cigarettes. Those were his 3 vices.
Yeah.
He was married 5 times, I think, 4 times. It's like, why couldn't you have just kept one of those away? That would have been great. And he's one of those filmmakers, man. I'm gonna miss hearing him talk.
Yes.
There's very few filmmakers I want to hear. Carpenter, yeah, I'll listen to him on a commentary, but I don't hang on every word. Lynch was a guy I just love hearing him talk. Scorsese is like a guy I love
absolutely.
hearing talk. Craven, another guy. There was just something about just the way their inflection, just the way they spoke. Romero, same thing. I loved his working man kind of voice that he had. And Lynch, definitely just going to miss hearing him.
I agree.
And talking about creativity. There's a book about transcendental meditation that he did, but it's an audible. It was a book, but it was also an audible that he narrated called "Catching the Big Fish," and it's an amazing book, just talking about creativity and where ideas come from and how you don't let one go. Keep it, because you never know where you're going to use it, kind of a thing. I mean, one of the greatest concepts of Twin Peaks, the idea of Bob, this entity, it came from happenstance.
Yeah.
Because a production designer, being Frank Silva, was hunkered down in the room in a shot, and they're like, hey, hey, Frank, do me a favor. I need you to bend down towards the bed. I need you to hold the end of the bedpost and just look evil. And it's like, why? It's like, I don't know, just do it. And it helped fuel the idea. So where Twin Peaks didn't have a direction in terms of who the killer was or what was going to happen, suddenly it had a direction. It went from Peyton Place to its own thing. And it's just, yeah, just such a fucking shame, man.
Yeah.
Fox Mulder is a
Absolutely.
very connected individual.
Yeah.
He could communicate. He was able to, conduct himself like a human being would. He may have believed in insane things, but he could still handle himself.
Right.
So when I'm watching Longlegs and she's acting the way she is, I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people went crazy for it. Fucking the horror film of the year. It's wonderful. Nicolas Cage is just brilliant. I'm like, why? He's in bad makeup doing Nicolas Cage. He did nothing different that he didn't do in Face Off or Vampire's Kiss. It gets me, and I'm trying to figure out, explain to me why you guys love this so much. And when I say that, I mean the current level of horror fan, which goes to an A24 movie or a movie like Longlegs, and somehow is able to find this appreciation and dare you say you don't like the film, because then you're accused of not understanding it.
Yeah, I
It's like,
know.
oh, well, it's just not for you. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, well, fuck you. Black Christmas isn't for you
Right.
because you can't understand the importance. And I still want to do a Halloween versus Black Christmas episode. Black Christmas is a fucking movie that is still imitated to this day,
Yeah.
but never gets any appreciation from the genre itself in terms of the fan base.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable to me. And I think that's why I watched it, because Olivia Hussey had passed away, so I went ahead and put it on again, even to know I had already watched it,
Yeah.
for the
Okay,
Christmas
so
holiday
that is the one.
already.
Yeah.
I think he showed me that one over the holidays.
And I mean, I
It's
can't
creepy.
understand. Oh my god, to this
Yeah,
day, if I watch it late at night, it bothers me.
Yeah.
and
That
all of
voice, oh,
what you would consider funny or lighthearted moments, they're necessary because otherwise you'll just be creeped out the entire time.
Yeah.
So,
and that's where Bob Clark was brilliant as a
mhm,
filmmaker. He knew that you got to relieve some of the tension just a little bit.
yeah,
And the scenes with John Saxon and the dumb cop and everything,
yeah,
fellatio. It's a it's a new prefix or whatever it is. It's such a great scene. I love that sequence.
Yeah.
It's some it's something dirty, ain't it? John Saxon, he's just so great in that movie, anyways. But
yeah.
um, like Vinegar Syndrome. Don't get me wrong. I love the concept of Vinegar Syndrome. Let's take these obscure horror films. Let's put them out there. But they've turned it into like a bad Las Vegas strip show, if that makes sense, because we're just going to take these bad things and we're going to make fun of them in some respects. We're going to give them these fancy covers, and people are buying them because of the collectability, and then they watch the movie and they make fun of it. And I'm like, but these were just bad movies anyways that you never took the time to do research on.
Hmm.
You claim you're a fan of the genre. I'm not saying you got to watch every fucking thing. I'm not saying that. But a lot of these folks don't even watch these movies until they get released by Vinegar Syndrome.
Right.
And then they laugh about how bad they are. And it's like, well, first of all, you go fucking make a movie, see how far you get. Because you know me, I'm always giving the low budget horror film a much higher bar in terms of, or I grade on a curve, better way of saying it,
Right.
probably.
Yeah.
Because I understand how hard it is to make a movie, and these people are making movies on very low budgets, if any, in some
Yeah.
cases. But it's just this weird celebration of these movies that faltered. They tried to run and they tripped, and it just seems to be a celebration of that to me. It's
Right.
just very bizarre, and it's
But
just this.
then you have the standouts, the ones that do knock it out of the park that you didn't see coming. We recently watched what was it? Was it Smile 2?
Oh, I love Smile too. Such a good movie.
But the first
Yeah.
one apparently?
Oh, the first one's horrible. The first one was so disappointing. Again, it was another one of those films that the horror crowd went crazy for. Oh, it's such a great movie. I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, well, you're pulling from The Ring, you're pulling from this, you're pulling from that. Okay, fine. but part 2 is able to take that idea, same filmmaker.
Oh wait, hold on. Rich, had you seen this yet?
Actually, Rick mentioned it while he was watching it. Weren't he and your son watching it?
No, it was
Or was it
Nye.
Nye?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
Nye.
okay.
Nye. Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, and that's right. You were late for the podcast, I believe it was, or for the meeting or something like that, because you had the audacity to
Oh,
watch.
that's right. Yeah, because
Watch this
I
movie.
can't
paused
remember
it.
what the hell we were doing, but it was
Yes.
Look, you know something? I would rather you tell me about a movie that was so good that you didn't want to do the podcast. So I mean, or that, you know, it crept in.
It made you late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what we need now.
See, and
Yes.
Smile 2 did make money. It did really well.
Good.
But more people talked about Terrifier 3, and I'm just like, that's so disappointing to me.
Yeah.
Because this is the one that knocked it out of the park. The other one is just a copy. It's a retread of things that were done back in the 80s. It's just a younger horror fan base is only
Right.
discovering it now. Because again, there's no interest in the past.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
I
just, I
completely
just don't get
agree.
that.
And it's a shame. See, I grew up at the perfect time to be a monster kid. Um, Actually, I'm about 3 years older, younger than a standard baby boomer. Um, and but that was the time of Famous Monsters of Filmland, which was a black and white magazine that idolized people who, for the most part, were elderly by that time. I mean, I started seeing or reading that magazine in probably '63. It was started in the late '50s, and I mean, Karloff lived till 1969. Lugosi died when I was 3 months old. So, you know, these were people who were at least very old and getting a resurgence because of this whole monster fad. Because they were releasing the movies onto television, a brand new medium. Um, and when I say brand new, I mean, I understand there were television shows in 1947, but I mean, they were garbage. You know, they
Right.
were, you know, let's watch the hometown parade kind of thing.
Yeah, it wasn't the programming that
Right.
we
So,
have.
so now, you know, AIP and Universal and all of these great companies take these movies that they never thought they'd ever make a penny on again, and sold them to TV for a decent amount of money, and they became these stars from yesterday became stars again. Um,
Right.
you're not going to get that anymore. You're not going to get even as big as home video was, and Rick, that's more your generation. As big as that was, you do have resurgence of stars from that era. I mean, Barbara Crampton still makes a decent living. You know, Tom Atkins, you know, people like that. But it still wasn't as big as TV was when TV started. So I think
Right.
I went through the golden era of of history of movies, and I think your generation came right after that. Um, and that's why you know the history of it. Besides the fact that you took the time to learn. What I'm saying though is that it was more readily available to your generation than any other generation except for mine.
Right.
And they put it out there. Now, of course, the ridiculous part of this whole thing is we have the internet now. You can go on and read about anything ever. There's movies on the internet that were considered lost when I was growing up. Yet nobody takes the time. Nobody takes the time to learn anything. That's the ridiculous part to me.
Yeah, I remember, I think I mentioned the quote from Mick Garris before, but this was in regards to the ability to make films. And he said the democratization of the technology was essentially hurting the industry because anybody can make a movie. And I remember that kind of hurt my feelings when he made that comment. But
Yeah.
then I think about that in relation to what you're saying, which is, again, we have the internet, the ability to find anything. How did we go from my generation and your generation, where if we wanted to track down a movie, it was literally tracking down a movie. It was a procedure you had to go through. And when you saw it, you watched it. You watched it till
Oh,
the end
hell
because
yeah.
you're like, dude, I just tracked this movie down. How do we go from that to the world's your oyster and you're just not even going to look in that direction? Is so I just don't get it. It's
It might be
so
that it's too easy. I don't know. Or there's no urgency to it. How about that? How about no
right.
urgency to it? You and I, in fact, one of the podcasts covered the monkey talks, which my chances when I was a kid of seeing the monkey talks was about zero.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys have both seen stills from it, how good that Jack Pierce makeup is. It's stunning.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so um, that's the weird part. Now you can see it, and what happened? Well, I don't have to watch it today because I can watch it tomorrow, or I can watch it next week. And maybe that's it. Maybe the urgency is gone because I got news for you. When I found the old dark house, which again was supposedly lost for
Mm-hmm.
years, um, I had a shot to see it, and that window was about 2 days.
Ah.
You bet your ass I saw it, and then figured out how to get a copy of it. So I've had it in my collection since a little bit maybe before a lot of people, but
Okay.
thank God it's out there now because it's such a fun movie and such a weird movie that I honestly don't know what would have happened if I had never seen it. I guess I wouldn't know what I was missing. But anyway,
But I do believe you guys when you say that one, there's no urgency, and two, the boutique labels that are putting out the stuff that you guys feel now generation doesn't have a connection to. If they're the ones curating it, then it makes it difficult to want to go back and watch good stuff. You don't have that same appreciation because when you're basically stuck with, okay, the only way that you can get your fix for your specific genre that you have a love for is to go to the theater or is to watch it on TV when it comes on, when it's advertised. There's no other way to get it. You now have, we can get anything anywhere. You just have to pay to stream it. You just have to pay to get it delivered to you.
yeah,
Then you're right. Where's the urgency? Where is the uh, the fire to go find these things?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to a good friend, and I'm not gonna verge into music for too long, but bottom line
Okay.
is I used to go, and I'm not kidding here. I used to go to 3 or 4 towns away from where I lived to learn a guitar chord that somebody knew.
Yes.
Somebody knew how to do a B minor, and I was on a bus. I mean, I was on a bus with my guitar to
Yep.
go there to learn a chord get back on the bus. I mean, sure, maybe you'd pick up one or two more while you were there, but that was it. And we used to do that. And um, we used
Because
to,
that was the only way.
right, it was. And it was kind of the same thing with movies. We would find out,
Mhm.
oh, something in because I don't know how many people out there watching this saw Day of the Dead in the theater. Now you're talking about a fairly recent movie, 1984 or 5,
85. Yeah.
So, uh, but we had to go. We had to drive into New York to see that movie, and it
Yeah.
wasn't like Manhattan. It was like Rye. Yeah, it was like it was their version of a Connecticut small town. It's like,
Yeah,
wow,
and they
holy
had it.
crap, and they got it. Yeah. So, yeah, we had to. When I saw Assault on Precinct 13, was at a college, and it had to have been 2 hours away. It had.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't remember exactly, but it was like in upper state Massachusetts, and me and another guy are driving up to see a movie that 90 minutes later we're going to get in the car and come home.
Yeah.
But we were seeing it on a screen. And that's the other
Yes.
thing. We didn't even know how big the screen was going. Is this a college theater, or is this a college auditorium where they, where they pull the screen down from the
There you
ceiling?
go.
So, but
You weren't aware of the setup.
yeah, but that's the lengths we went to see something new, or at least new to us, and it was really exciting.
I
See,
think that's what's missing.
Yeah,
Go
oh,
ahead.
the excitement portion.
part of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Turning it into an event. Again, the hunt to find something
yep,
and then watch it.
yep,
Everything is so accessible nowadays that it's really hard to sift through what is good and what is bad. And then you have people who are pushing the agendas of really bad films because they want the money,
yeah.
just, plain and simple.
And
Right.
if everything that Vinegar Syndrome, or let's go back a half a generation and say Sinister Cinema, if everything that they release has the same import, then what's important? Everything, I guess. So the strip club, the nudie, the nudie romps for the nudist camps is as important as whatever the Strangler from the Swamp. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, but there's kind of like, a little of that is kind of more important than the standard little, you know. Uh, Again, if we're talking about something that Romero directed that we didn't know about. Okay, yeah, that is important. Or something that Herc Harvey, the guy who did Carnival of Souls, if that's one of
Mhm.
one of his industrial films, I'm
Mhm.
in. I'll go. I will literally go to the theater to watch a 7-minute movie because he directed it. Um, but not everything's that damned important. And I think that's what Rick was saying.
Okay, going back to music.
Yep.
I think in every interview, either read or seen in a documentary with, I won't say, let's not even say iconic musicians of a period. Every musician who I've ever heard talk about their music will refer to their inspirations.
Hmm.
It really
Always.
feels like modern day filmmakers, they don't want to pay inspiration or speak of inspiration. It's almost like, oh no, I am me. I'm this original entity and I have created this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's no, and again it goes back to learning the past. In a Violent Nature, was that part of you, or you haven't seen it yet, Rich? The one that's basically it's a Friday the 13th movie that's not a Friday the 13th movie.
No, I missed that.
It was released independently. it's basically a movie, and they claim it's from the point of view of the killer. It's not, because you're over his shoulder, so it's not the point of view
God,
per se.
I hate that. All
Point of
right.
view would
Yeah.
literally be through his eyes would be point of
Yeah.
view, but okay, whatever. If you're gonna at least use the terminology, use
Yeah.
it
Use
properly.
it correctly, please.
Did they do that for was it Maniac?
Yes.
That was literally his point of view, right?
Yes, which, okay, going
Okay.
back to remakes,
Okay.
quick side Verge, excellent fucking remake.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
Oh
I
my
love the William
God.
Lustig one, but the Elijah Wood one is pretty damn good.
And I
Okay.
expected
Yeah.
nothing from it.
Oh,
Nothing from it.
absolutely. Me
I
neither.
mean, except that I know those guys are hardcore fans, but I've
Yeah.
Yeah.
seen hardcore fans fail before. I mean, I don't take anything away from Eli Roth. He's a
Yeah.
hardcore fan. Knowledge wise, he could probably beat the hell out of me in Horror Jeopardy. I mean, he's and he appears to be a decent guy to talk to.
Yeah.
But I've
And you
also
know what?
seen him do movies that are meh. You know,
Right.
he's
Thanksgiving, perfect example.
yeah,
Not
he's
not the
better than
greatest
that.
movie,
Right.
but I'll go back to in a violent nature in a second. But what I will say about Roth, when he cast Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
once he had his cast in place, he made them watch. They had a weekend together. They watched Happy Birthday to Me, April Fool's Day. Right. He showed them all the sub slasher movies of that period,
Right.
which were a great inspiration for Thanksgiving.
Again, I love the guy. Personally,
Yeah.
love the guy. I would want to sit down and talk to him until until I just croaked.
I
He's a great guy, or appears to be.
for hit for me, the coolest the moment when he was in my cool book, I was actually listening to the commentary for Cabin Fever,
Hmm.
his very first film. And in his commentary, he talks about he made a correlation with the movies of the 80s. And he said, if I create a character like this, it's 1983 and it's My Bloody Valentine, where you can have a badass girlfriend, but be the chubby guy with a mustache, a handlebar mustache, you know. And,
Yep.
and I'm like, yeah, this guy's cool. He definitely grew up watching the same stuff I did.
And
But
be
going,
spectacled. He also had glasses, so he had the handlebar mustache. He was overweight, had
And he wore
glasses.
glasses.
I'm almost
yeah,
positive he did. I can see him, and it's like, wow, that dude did all right.
oh, absolutely, because he got girly with the red
It's like,
dress cut up to here.
yeah, it's
But
like, how do I sign up for that? I mean, jeez.
Apparently, it's the charisma.
Yeah,
mhm.
or Canada, one of the two.
Or Canada.
Charisma or Canada, coming this year from coming from the Hallmark anyway.
But going back to a violent nature, the reviews were sort of hyperbolic,
Okay.
obviously, because it turned into one of the most daring horror films of the year, some of the most disturbing imagery. And I'm watching the movie and I'm like, this is like Friday the 13th, the video game, is all it is. You're following behind his shoulder as he's walking around killing people.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's so much better than a Friday the 13th movie because it subverts everything and it takes it up to here. But then you have the most absurd kill sequences, which not even a Friday the 13th movie would do, simply because logistically they're impossible. When you have a person being killed as they stand up, and the killer basically rams the hand through the person, grabs them by the head, and then pulls them through the hole. And I'm like, wait a minute. Not even Friday the 13th would do something that cartoony, but
Right.
somehow this is better than a Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah.
And like, it's just, again, it's just so flabbergasting.
Wait a minute.
It's
I
just,
did see that. You turned
wasn't
me
that?
on. Didn't you you turned me on to it, didn't you? Oh, no, no, no.
No,
That's
no, no.
I am the killer.
Oh yeah,
Oh, oh,
yeah, that,
you must
Sorry.
be,
yeah,
or
I
you
got
might
my
be the killer.
you
Yeah,
might be
right,
the killer.
right.
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh.
Different
Yeah.
movie. That
But I
one,
like that one compared
underappreciated
to,
film, yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
I agree.
yes.
It was pretty damn cool.
And I can't do that one for my column because it is too over the top. Too much gore.
Yeah.
No.
But yeah,
I,
I know what you. It's terrible to say because I don't want to be that old guy. I really don't want to be the, well, they don't make it the way they used to in my day. Yeah, I know there's color and sound now, but so I don't want to be
um,
that asshole, but because I'm constantly fighting against that. Um, I've said it before. I have a lot of friends who, as far as they're concerned, movies stopped being made in 1959
Yeah.
with I don't know, The Creature Walks Among Us, and
hmm.
Okay.
they don't even entertain Psycho. I mean, come on. And
Wow.
and I sit there and I say, how can you limit yourself? But the opposite is true too. It, it's people like you were saying. It's people who just don't bother wanting to learn, and it's like shit, man. This has been done before. It's been done worse, and it's been done better. But you got to at least know it's been done before.
Yeah.
I don't care if you argue about whether it was good or bad, but shit, man. I mean, just please don't say that stuff is new and
Original.
yeah,
Yeah.
and courageous. Oh dear God, please.
I am so tired of hearing any celebrity forum, be it acting, writing, directing. You're not brave, you're not courageous. You're a filmmaker, you're an actor, you're an entertainer. That's what you are.
Yeah,
You're not curing cancer. You're not fighting, to keep our country safe. You're just a filmmaker. Leave it at that.
yeah,
The Substance is another movie everyone's gone gaga over. I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it. But to say Demi Moore, she's just brave. She's brave because she showed herself nude at her age. That's not brave. It's just it's fine. Do it. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. You want to show your body, but you're still an actor. That's what you are.
yeah. But
You're
I
not
do
changing
that
the
every
world.
day. No one's going to pay me to do it, but no, I do that every day. So what? Am I'm brave when I shave? Come on, give me a break. You know?
Yeah, and you're not changing the world. You're not doing any of that. And I think that movie, I want to see it, but from judging on the outside so far, it feels like the film got its accolades because it was directed by a female director, which I'm like, great, I'm glad the female voice is out there in the genre. That way we're not accused of being misogynist all the time. If there's more, women in the sandbox, but to give it all of its accolades for only that reason and ignore the fact that the movie she made, it's already kind of been done. It's been done by Cronenberg. It's been done by Brian Usna. It's not any different, but you're going to treat it like it is different, and it's not.
Yeah,
Her
yeah,
first movie, Revenge, is a really good movie. It's a brutal, revenge movie, but it's not any different than Miss 45. But of course, if you mention Miss 45 to the people who like Revenge, they would be like, "What's Miss 45?" It's basically the same idea. It's a woman who, after being, attacked, gets revenge by killing every motherfucker that attacked her.
yeah,
Oh,
and
that sounds
and
like the same movie. Yeah,
yeah,
it kind of is. Yeah.
yeah. Sounds like Last House. Sounds like it sounds like a bunch of movies. And
Right.
again, it depends on how strictly you want to adhere to that specific plot. But yeah, it's a revenge flick, and
Because
they're
I
great.
get. Oh, yeah, I love revenge movies.
You and I
That
have talked about
subgenre. Yeah.
revenge flicks almost more than we talk about horror stuff because it's fun. I mean,
Oh,
who
absolutely.
doesn't want to see people die because John Wick's dog isn't doing so well? I love it.
See, and the thing I'm tired of hearing of in the podcasting end of things when it comes not just to horror films but film in general is this comment of, oh, I want to hear these new voices. I want the voices of this type of filmmaker and that. You know what I want? I want good fucking movies. That's what I
Yeah,
want. because when I watched old stuff as a kid, I didn't care about whose voice it was. I cared about the film that was supposedly so great that I needed to see it.
Yep.
And it seems like there's such a preoccupation with where the voice is coming from as opposed to what it's saying once it gets there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my thing. Hey, it's fine. If this is a black filmmaker who had never had a chance and now they're getting their chance, that's great. Hey, if this is a filmmaker from an impoverished country somewhere who hasn't had an opportunity to tell stories, they're telling it. It's great. But don't give accolades just because of their social standing or
Right.
their age or this or that. What about the actual film making, the actual storytelling? That's what should matter.
Yeah. And it's the only thing that should matter.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, when they're dead and gone, no one's going to remember, their face after a while. So it's
Yeah.
not going to matter.
Yeah. It truly is. It's kind of scary. My son was talking to me about how long we live in the memory, and we got about 15 minutes into the conversation. I got so scared that it was like, man, it's I don't know how now you help if you're in a position like I am and go, just don't go like, man, Alf was bullshit. And it's like, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It wasn't, but it it just nothing's going to matter. It's that old line, in 100 years it's not going to matter. It's like, damn, it's not even 100 years anymore. It's just terrifying.
I think it's because of the speed of the technology. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have access to 1,000 other things, that one drop in the bucket is not going to get its message and voice out. Unless you have somebody who's carrying the torch for it, which
Yeah.
is why I think our podcast is incredibly important, because that's what we like to talk about.
I agree.
Mhm.
Although I do shy away from anything that I have to say important, but yes, I get it. I mean, I think we need to keep the ball rolling on this, because yeah, if we're not championing it,
Yep.
it's not being championed. Period. Whoop.
There
So
are some like-minded people, but I do feel that for the most part, it should be a group effort. We can all champion the genre in our own ways.
yeah, and what ends up happening is where we all try to speak as a plus, as a positive.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes, unfortunately, we start arguing amongst ourselves, and I don't mean the three of us. I mean, like,
Oh, I
no,
get what you
like
mean.
there's other podcasts who will tell us, well, the subject matter that we just spoke about is tripe. It's
Yep.
like, well, no,
Yeah.
it's not, and you should be on board with telling people to check it out. If you've got a good horror movie that you saw, if you truly believe, you know what, this is a different voice, this is kind of cool,
Yep.
champion. Oh boy, that's tough actually. It's like saying Irish wristwatch. Go ahead, I know you're going to try it anyway. It's, say something about it. And you know what? The worst thing that's going to happen is somebody else is going to say, "Yeah, I didn't like it." Okay, that's,
Right?
that's cool.
I would like to see more, I guess, more togetherness in the genre. I would like to see that. I would like to see members of the genre, fans of the genre, not try to say, "Oh, well, this is so much better because it's subverting it. It takes it to another level." It's like, but it's still a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's give it that due. It's all part of the same pool.
Yep. If you're watching a horror movie and it isn't either creeping you out or scaring the hell out of you or making you laugh uncomfortably, something's kind of off. But if it is doing one of those three things, or better yet, all of those three things, man, you got to get out there with a megaphone. I mean, I desperately try to do that. I'm positive that somewhere amongst you two, the next time I mention the autopsy of Jane Doe, you're just going to slit my wrists. So I mean, it's going to stop it. But that's the one I took the bullhorn for. And there are other movies that I have said outwardly, look, I'm still waiting for something to click with It Follows. But that damn movie has made me watch it 8 times. I'm not kidding. 8 times.
Because you want to like it.
Because there's something that isn't connecting, and I don't mean because it's shit. I mean, there's something that isn't connecting, and it makes me want to check it out, find out what it is. And at the end of it, if afterwards I say, okay, look, I gave it 10 times and that's it, I'm done. Okay. But it wasn't from lack of trying. You know, I understand that there are movies sometimes that I'm truly not going to get. But I don't want to be told that I didn't understand it, because I'm relatively sure I did, but it just didn't click on some level.
Yeah,
So,
because when you tell someone that, when you're like, oh, well, you just didn't get it, it just wasn't made for you, such a demeaning comment,
of course,
just from one human being to another.
Yeah, they're basically saying you're stupid, or at least in my opinion.
And they put themselves on such a high pedestal at that point because they understood it. They got it,
It's the guy who it's the guy who after Orca said, well, say what you want, but I found elements of Greek tragedy in there, and I almost strangled him. I almost beat the hell out of him, because it just gets to the point where you're like, I'm sorry, what?
Greek tragedy.
Yeah. Well, then there's there's the and I know I told this, but I'm not sure I did it on a podcast, but that guy is the same guy. We called him fucking Dave, because it's always
I remember you saying
always fucking Dave.
It'd be good.
But anyway, fucking Dave was we were in a theater watching Dawn of the Dead prior to its release. Might have actually been about 6 months prior to its release. So it actually did have some things in there where the effects weren't quite finished. And so anyway, we go from this zombie who I can't remember the guy's name, but he's such a beloved zombie. Everybody loved this guy, but he was lying on the escalator being taken up to the second floor. He was just a zombie who couldn't even handle the escalator. And and it's going up, and the next shot there's teenagers playing like volleyball on the beach, and fucking Dave turns to me and says, see, what Romero's doing here is he's juxtaposing the old world with the blah blah. And as he's talking, you hear, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, but we were shipped the wrong reel, and you're all going to be getting your money back, and we will hopefully be able to reconvene over the next month or two when they do send the correct reel, and we'll be able to judge the movie for what it is, blah blah blah. And I just look at fucking Dave and I said, you were saying
fucking Dave.
So anyway, but that's the kind of person, though, is who will jump up and tell you, well, you just didn't get it. No, I kind of did. I may not have connected with it, and maybe that's my fault, or maybe that's the filmmaker's fault. But don't fucking tell me I didn't get it.
Yeah.
if somebody ever wants to sit down and explain something that I that didn't click with me, that's very cool. I'm the first one to admit, nah, you know what, I didn't see that. Um,
Yeah.
we all three of us mentioned the fact that John Hancock's wife writes this brilliant treatment of Jaws 2.
Yep.
And I don't mean treatment in the literal sense. I mean treatment of Jaws 2. Um, and I certainly never saw the flaw in it. And that's all I see now.
Yep.
It's like, holy crap.
Opened our eyes.
It really, really shocked me that Amity wasn't kind of closed down. And they
After
were,
this
and they
crazy ass, yes.
right, and they should have been panicked about it, and that's what it should have been. It shouldn't be, oh, it's happening again. It's like, no, 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 this can't happen again. We're just building up. We're just starting to open up, and that's what the politics should have been. And it was missing, and yet she got it immediately. I certainly didn't. So I don't have a problem saying no, it was right in front of my face, but I never connected with it. Just
The
like
way.
Rick said, just don't be the one to tell me I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I'll tell me I didn't get it.
Speaking of Jaws 2, if we ever do the charity script read for
Mhm.
that using her original script,
Yeah.
I finally figured out who I want to try to get for Hooper.
Who?
Justin Long. I think he would be fucking phenomenal. Because I kept thinking, who's a modern day Richard Dreyfuss out of current actors? I would put him in that bracket.
Yeah, kinda. I see that.
Yeah, I could totally see him doing the dialogue. I start hearing his voice in my head, you know.
Yeah.
Snarky,
Yeah,
but
I could
tasteful.
say and it's not Jack the Ripper. It's a shark. Because he's got that little squeak to him, just
Right.
like Richard Dreyfuss does. So I think he would be phenomenal.
That would be a lot of fun. Have we even
He
gotten the script yet?
No, I still gotta
I
get the
want that.
script.
I want that script. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as I care, we know John Hancock. If the script isn't out there,
Oh, it is.
we
It's
want it.
available.
We
Yeah.
want
Yeah,
it.
it's available.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking Jeremy Gardner as Brody, Justin Long as Hooper, but I don't have a Quint yet.
Yeah. That's gonna be the tough
Yeah.
one. That's gonna be the bitch. All right.
Jeffrey
I'll do it.
Combs. Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey
Nah.
Combs. He might make a good Quint.
Nah. Too
He's kind
short.
of aged into it.
You
Well,
said too
but
short.
this is a script read. We're not actually making the movie, for
I
God's
know.
sake.
That's why. That's why I said it.
I think Rich is just trying to buck for the position.
Yeah.
It's sure, Rich, you can read with these professional actors in our charity script read. Why not? But let me ask you a question, and this could be even for you, sweetheart. I always considered engagement and passion for the material intertwined, because if you don't care about the stuff you're watching anyways, if you don't have love for it, because isn't
Right.
that the difference between someone who just goes to a movie for the fun of it? Just like, oh, I got nothing to do on a Friday night, I'm going to go to a movie. Wouldn't that be the difference between that and people like us, in terms of we have a passion for this stuff? So
Right.
when we go to a genre movie, this is our thing. This is what we
Yeah.
do. We go to these type of movies, as opposed to the person who's like, oh, I kind of like it.
Right.
It's the same argument I would make about people who consider themselves cinephiles,
Mm-hmm.
and then someone who's truly just a straight out horror nut. Because that cinephile, they're not really open to other films within the genre. They're looking at
Right.
the most widely respected of the genre.
Yeah.
Now, folks like you and me, Rich, we kind of we surf in both territories. We're horror nuts, but we still love movies like The Godfather and Raging Bull. I got Murphy's Romance on my shelf over here. My buddy Jody's got Sleepless in Seattle on his shelf. So
Oh, that's
Do
weird.
you
No, I'm
think
just kidding.
do
I'm
you
just
think
kidding.
there's actually, and again, this is not meant to be a gatekeeping sort of comment, do you think people really have a love for even movies anymore? Because how many times have we heard the comment, "Relax, it's just a movie." Is that the talk of someone who's a fucking passionate lover of film?
See,
Or
I
is that
don't.
the average person?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. It might be an average person. And the other thing is they took the when we stopped going to the theater to see movies. I've described the Strand Theater in Hamden, Connecticut, as my church. I mean,
Mhm.
that's where I went to worship at the feet of these gods who made movies, and that gave me something that religion, at least to me, for me, couldn't have given me. But man, oh man, I loved movies, and I loved being afraid more than I loved laughing,
Mhm.
or more than I loved watching cowboys, kill each other. I liked. I happen to love being afraid, but I do. I absolutely love movies.
See, and I don't think it was that long ago where general audiences had that type of feeling. Let's say, let's take it back to there's a there's some pretty well-known YouTube shows out there that primarily talk about all film, but one of their constant arguments is about the superhero genre.
Right.
And one of the comments they make continually are things like, "Well, should I have to watch 5 other superhero movies to understand what happened in this one?" And I'm kinda like, "Well, you kinda do." Because if
Because
you're a
it's like a
lover of
comic
that
book,
genre, right,
right?
if you're a lover of that genre, aren't you going to anyways? Why are you
Yeah.
gonna complain about the fact that, "Oh, there's so many things I don't understand?" And I
Or
would
the in
say,
jokes, right?
right, and let's talk about the peak of the superhero genre. I would go ahead and say Avengers, Infinity War.
Yeah.
Or which one's first, Infinity War or Endgame? Infinity
Infinity
War,
War.
right?
Infinity
Yeah.
War has to be first, I think. Yeah.
I still remember how that audience felt. It was just you were just there with people who fucking love these characters, and
Right.
they were cheering at the right parts, and they're clapping, and when the final shot of Thanos enjoying his work, that's the last scene you see, you heard the entire audience go, "What?
Yeah.
That's how you're gonna end?" The passion was under the roof of that theater.
Right.
I don't experience that much over the last 2 or 3 years. Since
Yeah.
COVID was over and movies came back and came back to be, there's not a lot of people into movies anymore.
No. And I mean, I haven't been. I've been to some extremely popular movies because I have three grandkids, and so I was there opening weekend for Beetlejuice, for
Oh.
instance, and the theater was half-ish full.
Mhm.
Oh.
You know, that so I don't think it's back. I
Mhm.
think it's too easy to let's let's be honest. If you get to sit there and watch a movie in your underwear, with a bag of Ruffles,
Rather
it's
than spending an arm and a leg to go
yeah,
out.
right. And you guys still do that as a family, so you understand how expensive it
Yep.
is. Um, Michael picks up all of our movies because he belongs to some movie club.
Mhm.
So I have no idea, but I'm relatively sure that it's a car payment. So
Ah, ah.
to have three kids and him and um and grandma and grandpa tag along must
Yeah,
be.
so that's a full family too.
Yep. Yep. So
See, and speaking of Beetlejuice, I remember telling Niobe about because we were watching Beetlejuice again on
yeah.
TV, And one of the stories I love recounting about seeing the original Beetlejuice back in '86 is during the Banana Boat song. When that fucking sequence ended, when it said, punch, and the shrimp hands come out, and that audience I saw it with fucking freaked. People screamed, people clapped, they cheered.
Yep.
You could not hear the dialogue between Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis.
Yep.
Because people were still laughing. They were still they were coming down off the high of that moment.
Yep.
And one, sometimes it brings me to tears because I'm like, that is just fucking filmmaking that doesn't happen anymore. It's beautiful.
Right.
But then the kids are never going to experience that.
Right.
That exhilaration is just not there. And
not in
that
that
is
form.
No, not in that form.
No.
And it's just and again, it's a communal thing. It's something about experiencing that with so many people at one time. It's there truly is a vibe to that, an energy that again, maybe it's because of the interaction and engagement with not just media anymore, because I know I've talked to a lot of people who say video games have replaced that for a certain age bracket. Now, personally, I don't see how, though, because I don't think it's the same energy as being able to, experience that with a whole bunch of people at one time. And maybe it is. I don't know.
Right.
But I wonder if that in
No,
any
not on that
way.
level.
Yeah. See, so because by that logic, wouldn't you have to play a game with 80 people at the same time under the same roof?
Yeah.
You
know what example I always come up with? You say the Banana Boat, which is a great example. Mine is the opposite. Mine is a silent one. When in Alien, where they're looking for, right? and Dallas hits an aluminum pan with his foot, and it knocks everybody off their chair. It's so scary because there's no noise whatsoever, and all of a sudden he kicks this thing, and then you hear, sorry.
Yep.
And it's like, that scared the living shit out of me. I told somebody afterwards, it was like, that's the amount of tension, and that's the artwork.
Yep.
That's the pure artwork. It doesn't have to always be flashy. It can be
subtle.
Almost, yeah.
See, and I'm wondering, man, if we're ever going to have filmmakers like that again. Because I'm not even going to be as bold to say when I'm making films finally, if my stuff is going to hit that level. But I'm talking about guys like Ridley Scott at the time, Spielberg when he was at his finest, George Lucas, all those guys. Michael Mann, for example, Scorsese, just all these different directors. You look at the work they did at their heyday, in the 70s and the 80s. It's stuff that's imitated poorly now.
Yeah.
There's really no filmmakers out. It's like we're trying to push, kind of like actors who get pushed to the forefront, and it's like they don't have the talent. Stop trying to make them a thing.
Right.
That guy from Twisters is an example. What is his name again? The guy I don't like, sweetheart.
Glenn
Powell. There you go. Yeah. I feel we do that with filmmakers too, like Robert Eggers. It's like, oh, he's a monumental filmmaker. Look what he did with Nosferatu, The Northman. And it's just like, no, he did one good movie, The Witch. That was his one good movie. And you guys have pushed him to the forefront. Oh, yeah.
And I can't watch The Witch because The Witch is too scary.
The Northman was like, hey, we're going to make a Conan the Barbarian movie, but without the fun of a Conan the Barbarian movie.
I sat through that movie because our oldest was like, Mama, you got to watch this movie. It's so great. You put it on. And by the end of it, I was like, Derek, you stole so much of my life right now. I don't understand. I guess I'll have to pay you back somehow.
I was going to say, but I will pay you back. Yeah. If I live to be 90, I will get you for that.
It's when you do that. I'm gonna tag you back.
Tag you back.
Yep. Well,
Um,
I think I can sum it up. Not that I'm trying to put a cap on it, but I think I can sum it up with something Rick would understand, which is, Rick, you remember Preview magazine?
yeah, I do.
Okay. I don't think you could put out a Preview magazine today because I don't think there's as much talent. There were
Oh,
issues of Preview. Now, Preview didn't stick to horror stuff or any one
no one
genre.
genre. Okay.
It was just big. I don't want to say big budget, big movies, important
Okay.
movies. Um, there that stupid magazine would be so jam packed that you there isn't even the one issue, one article you can't wait to read. You just start at page one and just read through the damn thing because everything was in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't a huge John Borman fan, but their coverage of Excalibur when that came out, it was like, man, this is cool. And it was around the time that Dragon Slayer and stuff like that was. I don't think you could put out Preview magazine anymore because you'd be hunting
It'd be
to
so
find
skinny.
something to something to write about. And
Yeah.
I don't think they could help themselves back then. I have a funny feeling they shot for 80 pages and hit about 120 every issue. It's like, nope,
Hmm.
sorry, it's going to cost you more because we couldn't limit it.
Yeah.
Am I over romanticizing it, Rick? Or
No, I think you're talking about a period where people, first of all, not only did you have the content, if you will, being the movies to talk about, and filmmakers that were thought provoking and what they were trying to do with their work, but you're also talking about a culture who wanted to know.
yeah,
I don't think anyone in the present culture gives a shit. They don't want to know how this director came up with an idea or how this writer struggled to find out how to adapt this book into a, they just don't give a shit. They don't care. And for younger creative entities, it's like they don't feel there's any worth to it. Oh, I don't need to know what that guy did. I don't need to know how he made it. I'm going to make it my way. I don't care how Scorsese did it. It's
oh
like, but you should.
yeah, you damn well
You should
should.
care about how he did it, you know? You
You
should
know,
care about how Spielberg did this on Jaws. You should, all these type of things you should care about. And I don't think there's a desire for that type of material, unfortunately.
because there was a time where Hitchcock was the only director on the face of the earth. Period. That's
Yeah.
all anybody cared about. And look, I'm not saying it wasn't warranted. I'm just saying that they would do, because he had this incredible sense of humor and because he had a weekly television show which ran for, I may be mistaken, 13 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so he was in our living room every week for at least 36 weeks, because back then that's how long a season was, and then
Oh,
repeats. So you can't even do a full list of repeats, a full run of repeats. That's how many
yeah.
first run episodes there are. Okay,
Hmm.
so he's in our living room every day. So thank God he was interesting enough to listen to, so they would do half-hour documentaries on it.
Hmm.
Pick any other director, and they didn't want to know dick from them. I mean, period. That's it. They just weren't interested.
They
Uh,
they didn't know who David Lean was. They
no,
didn't know Richard Attenborough. They're
no,
like, no, but I know who Alfred Hitchcock is.
yeah,
He's on my TV guide. I see him once a week on television.
absolutely. So that, but thank God for that, because at least
Hmm.
Hitchcock knew what he was talking about, and there are seriously, there are 5 or 6 documentaries that include him in them. I mean, talking
Oh,
about and sometimes it's just like Eye on Directors or something, something like that. But
okay.
I don't know that there was ever 2 episodes of Eye on Directors because I don't think anybody knew them, but they knew Hitchcock, and thank God for that. But if I wanted to know how something was done, I've said before, in my high school, we did have a cinematography class, which was huge. I mean, it wasn't TV. That was a separate thing, the AV.
Mhm.
This was actual cinematography. But for that, we got Jeff Rovin, who is a writer,
Mhm.
had directed something where he animated a GI Joe that had 4 or 6 arms. I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty impressive. But I mean, it was just, you know, and it was maybe a 5-minute Super 8 film, and he came in to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, for that day, he was Alfred Hitchcock because I mean, that's the only person who's coming into our school to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, you couldn't get anybody. Now you put a 5-inch disc into the machine that used to play your CD music, and guess what? Everybody's on it. And
Yeah.
and I don't do anything from a jealous point. I mean, the negative parts of jealousy. But
Gotcha.
but am I envious that you can you can learn everything now when it's not as important for me, but it's important for the kids. It's important for
Yeah.
people who want to, and they don't take advantage of it. I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? You've got Scorsese, you've got, whatever. Um, you've got all of these people who are more than happy to talk about how they did everything, and some of them are great and
Yeah.
some of them aren't, but they're all there.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh God. And I everybody from my generation, from cinematography, that really all we talk about. Oh my God, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we could have edited at home? And can you imagine if we could have put sound in? You used to have to lay a sound strip, a recorded sound strip on your Super 8 millimeter film. They had to do it technically. I couldn't.
Mm.
Just to record music and dialogue. And then you had to record it with a microphone. So everybody sounded the same because you were actually doing all your characters. So you
Yep.
got have the guy who talks like this and the guy who talks like, and it's like, oh my God, it was might as well have been the Stone Age. And I would have loved this technology. And I will tell you right now, I would have not done what this generation is doing, which is like, nonchalanting it, because it exists. It's like, all right, fine.
That's what it is, though. You don't know what you have until you've either lost it or if you've never encountered having it in the first place.
Yep.
And for me, I understand what both of you are saying, where coming up without access to a lot of the things that are available now it's not an envy thing. I know, because you can't be envious of future progress.
Yeah, it's great.
But
It saves
it is
our
great.
lives.
Exactly. And on a creative level, all you can do is simply hope that there are other like-minded people such as yourselves who have the same kind of love and passion. any generations after mine, like our kids, for instance, will have both of our sensibilities on it, because all three of our kids, they really do love movies, and it seems like our youngest has taken a really big liking to horror movies.
Good.
I get it. Yeah, she's definitely, father and daughter. They love the horror genre. Now, I still can't get on board with our oldest and his tastes in terms of movies, because I feel he's very pretentious on what he likes and super judgy. So I I just can't be on board.
He's the Fellini
Now,
fan in the family, right?
I have no idea. Ricky Bellini? I don't know who
Yeah,
that is.
he likes Fellini. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Ricky knows. Now, even I kind of had a little bit of experience in this, going to the movie theater and experiencing the awe and wonder of seeing a movie with an entire full packed theater, and having those feelings of, wow, us as a community, we all got it at the same time. We all got scared. We all laughed so hard. Again, the feeling that came through on the screen was a communal thing. I think just the way that our culture is going now, it's not as big a priority as everything else that we're bombarded with.
Yeah.
So when Ricky's bringing up video games, for instance, the dynamic between the two of us is Ricky is the cinema person. He loves movies to death. I, on the other hand, love video games, probably to death. So again, having our kids kind of vie for, okay, are they going to be gamers or are they going to be cinephiles? Like it was kind of, can go either way. I had the boys at one point, but they play games just to relax and wind down. Now they don't do it by any means professionally, or or want to get into the world of making them.
Right.
Now, I will say though that them coming up the way that they did, they didn't even get to experience what you guys are talking about having a packed audience and everybody experiencing the same feeling at the same time. So they don't have that as a priority. They're
Right.
not chasing that dragon.
Well, I'll do you one better. Rick and I are such junkies for it that I guarantee you he has picked the time he wanted to see a movie because it would benefit the audience, would benefit him. He's gone to the 10 o'clock show because the 8 o'clock show is not going to have the right audience. He's gone to, I'll guarantee you, he's gone to a college campus to see Monty Python and the Holy Grail or something along those lines. One of those movies that you need to see with a college audience because it's, no exaggeration, 5 times funnier. I mean, and if you don't think Monty Python and the Holy Grail could be funnier, see it with a college audience. They'll go berserk, or at least back when it came out. It amped it up. So we've done that. We've gone to shit. I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre at a drive-in. I was outside on the hood of my car
watching this movie.
God, it was wonderful because when he's running through the brush, it's like, basically I'm thinking,
you look over your shoulder.
exactly,
because you're outside.
Exactly. It's almost like sense around, but real. It's like, oh, this is cool. This is, look what they've done to make the movie that much better. It's outside. I would have loved, and I could have, but I didn't. I would have loved to have seen Blair Witch outside at a drive-in.
Oh, Jesus, I don't think I could.
I never thought to do it. I wish I had, but oh man, that's the kind of thing he and I did to one extent or another throughout our lives to make it even better than seeing it with a packed audience. You're seeing it with a packed, loaded audience, and I don't mean drunk. Although there were those never mind, not important. But I mean, that's, anything to make the experience that real. That's what I can't wait. I've told you, I cannot wait for video games, virtual reality to put me inside the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I don't mean an interpretation of it. I mean that movie, because we're going to be able to do it.
One day, yes.
Yeah. I want to be in that movie. I want to be in the 1978 Halloween. I want to be in the 1968 Night of the Living Dead. I want to be in Psycho. Oh my God, do I want to be in Psycho? And I'll take anything. I mean, I'll take any part in that. I don't even have to be in the shower, although I'd pay extra to be in the shower.
Pay extra.
That's the kind of I will do. That's the kind of thing I've done all my life. It's just technology hasn't caught up yet.
All right, guys.
This has been so great, and we didn't touch on anything we were going to touch on except for one of Rick's ideas.
And I had
ageism. I think like the ageism thing, right?
Yeah, but it worked. I had a blast with this. I can't say I feel better necessarily about
after our conversation.
The future. I'm a little dour now, but that's all right. I'm working on it.
Yeah, like any faith I had in the future is like practically gone now.
Hey, what is it in Terminator? The future is what we make.
Yep.
No faith, but what we make. Yeah.
No fate, but what we make. There you go.
And I always say hope springs eternal. So let's see.
How about this? We champion the movies that we love.
Absolutely.
There we go.
Oh, and that being said, you guys need to check out Smile 2 and one I watched the other night called Malum, Malum, which is actually a remake of The Last Shift, a movie from like 7-8 years ago, from the same director. He got to make his movie twice. So it's very
kind of like
interesting.
Smile. He got to make his movie twice.
Yeah, he got to make his movie twice. He made it better the second time around.
Thank God.
But yeah, Malum was really good. Incredible score, some really great scare moments. It's a good flick.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that works. Homework assignment again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Rich, do you have any last words?
No, just this always surprises me. I get into one of these and I'm thinking, is there really a direction of this? And there's just, but there is dead on a direction, and we got there, and I'm just thrilled about it. So I love you guys, and thank you so much, because we actually have people who are starting to watch this.
Right? Love you too.
All right.
And what about you, Ricky? Do you have any last words?
Just if you're on the younger spectrum of our viewership, please, man, go check out the old stuff. Check out Black Christmas. It's well worth it. Check out a lot of Bob Clark's early stuff. Just remember, there was stuff that came before that probably inspired the stuff you love now.
Yep. Always great advice. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next round. Bye.
Next time.
Wow, that was good.